Hello, Namibia. Welcome to Breakfast with FLI podcast, a show where we discuss financial topics and all things finances, and where we feed you breakfast in terms of financial literacy. I am Diago Manyangabu, your host for today, and in today's episode, I'm joined by Ms. Lara Enslin, the CEO of TransUnion Namibia. She has been an active member for the business development industry since starting her career 15 years ago. Having worked across a wide spectrum of industries, Ms. Lara brings strong customer service skills and a solid target mindset of promoting growth and generating sales to the tables. Her strong relationship building history and her negotiation skills across all levels of business allow her to actively find opportunities for clients and the best solution for their businesses. Ms. Lara holds a Bachelor's and a law degree from the University of Namibia and is responsible for driving business growth within TransUnion Namibia's market while ensuring seamless customer acquisition processes and maintaining regulatory compliance. We will be discussing credit reports today, what they are, why they matter, and how they impact financial well-being. Ms. Lara, welcome to Breakfast with FLI.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me today.
Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. Let's start with the basics. Can you just quickly take us through what a credit report is, why it is important to individuals and as well as the lenders?
Of course. What we found is a lot of people don't really know what a credit report is or why it's quite critical. So a credit report is a record of key personal information, payment information, financial information, including how many times you've applied for credit, what your credit exposure is, how many accounts you have, and what your credit obligations is there out there in the market. Companies like TransUnion credit bureaus, we have access to this information, and we then help other companies, credit lenders, to make informed decisions when granting credit. And all of this is to promote responsible lending practices. So, like I said, it also shows how many times you've applied for credit, and there's quite a lot of information, such as your basic information as well, your number of accounts, your outstanding balances, and if you have any public information, for example, any defaults against you, such as a judgment, that would also then be on your credit report. It's also important to know that an individual is entitled to one free credit report per year, and I really try and motivate everybody to request their credit report. So you're allowed to have one free credit report a year, and you can then go through this credit report to see what type of information the bureaus have on you, as well as what type of information credit grantors would potentially look at when making a decision. So the credit provider uses this information, so they use credit reports like the ones provided by TransUnion to make a decision when granting credit. However, it's very important to note that this report must never be used in isolation, meaning that they don't just look at this report when granting credit, they use it just to help them assess risk. At the end of the day, it's a credit grantor who makes this decision.
Interesting. How does one go about getting these credit reports?
So there's various ways, and we are working to making it a lot more accessible. But the moment you can get your free credit report by coming through to our offices. We are Office 27J at Old Power Station, Southern Industrial Windhoek. Alternatively, you can send an email to us as well at SA_Namibia free reports, and then we will then send you the application form to complete, or you can contact our offices as well for your report.
Very interesting. What key factors influence one's credit score, and how does this element affect their credit reports?
So there's actually several factors that could influence a person's credit score, but it's all about trends and how you utilize your credit. So your payment history, and this is about 40% of what affects your credit score. So that's the most significant factor, and that's how you pay your bills. So how you pay your bills, whether you pay it on time, whether you're late payer, whether you pay the full amount that's due every month, or whether you make any type of short payments. Then there's credit utilization. So with the credit utilization is, do you use your maximum credit that you can capably use? And I know that maybe you've heard the term jokingly used in the past of maxing out your credit card. And that's basically, does affect your credit report negatively because it shows that you're using your maximum credit available. So that would be one of the key factors that also influence is whether you use your maximum credit or whether you use smaller amounts. So say, for example, you've got 10,000 that you can utilize, but you only use 2,000 to 4,000. That actually reflects positively then on your credit report. Credit history length. I think this is also something that's quite challenging sometimes in Namibia, especially when it comes to financial inclusion. And we call this usually new to credit. So as soon as somebody is new to credit, they don't have a long credit history, and it makes it very difficult for credit grantors to be able to establish the risk or maybe the risk factor with regards to granting large amounts of credit. So if you have a long credit history and you can show, and your credit history displays that you're using credit quite not conservatively but responsibly, then that will count positively towards your credit profile, especially if you're applying for a large credit such as a property or a vehicle. Then, as I said, new to credit, the credit mix, also having a different mix. Mm-hmm. So you get what you have positive credit and you have a little bit of a what we call negative. So something like a mortgage loan, that's a positive credit. A vehicle asset finance, that's usually positive. Where if you see somebody that applies for multiple overdrafts or multiple short-term loans, or for example, multiple smaller loans, that might contribute negatively towards your score, towards your credit report.
Oh, very interesting. And how often can Namibians review their credit reports? And then, for example, if they spot an error, what steps can they take to correct the error?
So, and we quite try and promote this a lot as well. So you have access to one free credit report a year. Mm-hmm. And when you have access to this credit report, go through the information, see if there's any information on there that's not accurate. And when I say not accurate, it could be either your header information, such as your name, surname, address details, or any loans that might not belong to you, any information there, a payment that might not reflecting. If you find any inaccuracies on your credit report, you can then log a dispute with us. We've got a dispute email address, or alternatively, you can contact our office and log a dispute for us to assist you to rectify that information.
Okay. That's very good. Can you just take us through the sections of a credit report and what each section contains, the information each section of a credit report contains?
And this is quite nice because this is sometimes where even when people do get their credit report, they don't always understand all the sections of the credit report or the meaning that it has. So typically your credit report or the TransUnion credit report will have your header information, your personal information. That is your name, surname, date of birth, identification number, and also this might have your employer as well as your contact details on there as well. So that would be on the top of your credit report. Then there would be public records. So if, for example, you've got any negative defaults maybe against you, defaults such as a judgment perhaps, that's a court, that would then also reflect on your credit report, as well as any collections. Any collections, say for example, if there's a default, you've defaulted with one of your on one of your payment profiles, that information would then also be contained on your credit report. And then it will also have a full history of your credit account. So all your credit exposure. So say for example, I've got 3 accounts. One of them might be a vehicle and asset finance, my vehicle. One of them might be a furniture store that I might have bought some clothing on, and another one might be a short-term loan. All of this will then be contained in your credit report, which will then show your outstanding balance as well as your monthly installments. And this is also just used by credit grantors to see what your credit exposure is, to make sure that they don't over-indebt you. And then lastly, also history of all inquiries. So all the inquiries that's been made on your credit report would then also show the history on there. And why that is important, so that you can see who's viewed your credit report. So say, for example, you went to apply for a loan at a bank, they might then do an inquiry on your credit report, and this will then reflect on the inquiry history on your credit report.
Oh, okay. Ms. Rada, I'm just wondering, how do different financial events, for example, late payments or bankruptcies stay on a credit report until they are removed.
Okay, so this is also a question that we get quite a lot. How long with this negative information? I haven't been managing my credit well. I was in a default. I got listed, as people like to refer to it. And this question comes through quite a bit. So with regards to the default listing, this would depend on the type of default. So say, for example, a default would remain on your credit report for 2 years or 1 year, depending on the description of the default. So a subjective classification of consumers' defaults remain for 1 year, and a normal consumer default would remain 2 years. Judgments, such as judgments granted by the court, they would then remain on your credit profile for 5 years. But it must be noted that as soon as you have settled this debt, so if you've done a payment onto it, or if you were in default and you've done a payment, your credit profile will then be updated to show that you have, even though there is a default, it will then show that you have made this payment, and when this payment was also, when this debt was settled.
Okay. And also, what are some common reasons a credit report may be negatively affected? And what practical steps, can one take to remove or to improve their credit standing?
So I think the most common one would be late payments. And unfortunately, this is something that also happened to me once. I think before I was informed, or better informed, when I was quite young still, is you think that making a late payment might not be a big deal. The payment needs to be done by the first, or the third, for example, and then you say, "Oh no, don't worry about it. I'll pay next week when I go to town," and you make a payment on the 10th or the 11th. All of that information will then affect your credit report negatively, because it will then come through as a late payment. So it's very important to always try and make your payments on time, and ensure that it is done before the due date. And then something else is maybe high credit utilization. As explained earlier, if you've got, say, for example, credit utilization where you can buy up to 20,000 and you continuously max it to the limit, then that will also then affect your credit report negatively. Where if you go, say, for example, you've got credit available of 20,000, but you only use 5,000 or 10,000, that will then reflect positively, because it would then mean that you are using this credit responsibly. Then also, something that would largely affect your credit report negatively would, of course, be default. So to such an extent that a credit grant has maybe done a default on you, or you've defaulted somewhere, or a judgment, this will then also affect your credit report negatively. I have to stress quite importantly that TransUnion, as a credit bureau, we do not list individuals. So we do not negatively list individuals. We only hold the data. So we're like a big data library, and we display this data to credit granted. We don't do the listing ourselves. We only hold that data.
Oh. Okay, and also how can credit monitoring help Namibians maintain an accurate or a healthy credit report?
So credit monitoring, it helps individuals to maintain accurate and healthy credit report by providing continuous access to their credit history. And as I said, you have to access your credit report. So I think the first step would be to access your credit report to see what type of information, and that will give you such a big understanding of what type of trends would then influence improving your credit for the future, such as I said previously, late payments. If you monitor your credit report, you can get alerts to say that there's maybe an account on your credit report that should not be there. There's a late payment that you were maybe not aware of, or there's a default. Maybe you've moved, you didn't leave your address information, and there's a potential default that might be coming through that you might not have been made aware of. So it does send alerts for significant changes, as well as new accounts, which is quite critical to know whether there's a new account opened up in your name or not.
Okay. TransUnion, being a credit reporting agency, how or to what extent is TransUnion improving or promoting financial inclusion in Namibia?
Right. So With regards to financial inclusion, it's something that I have to say that I'm quite passionate about, and I know that TransUnion is quite passionate about it as well. Because at the end of the day, it's about responsible lending, it's about openness, it's about transparency in business. So, just to give you a little bit of statistics, despite the high unemployment rate, more than half of the Namibian population has access to banking services. So, according to the latest report by the Bankers Association, the majority of the working age population, which is about between 15 and 59, utilizes banking services. However, December 2023, the statistics show yeah, 1.7 million Namibian consumers were serviced by about 216 banks. Now, this is the branches as well, right? So 1.7 million of the Namibian population was serviced by 216 banks. Right across Namibia. However, the stats also show that only 760,000 Namibians live on credit, of which 152,000 have negative information on their profile, which means that they might have a default listing against them. So why is statistical information important? It shows that there's still a large variety or a large gap with regards to access to the formal credit market, if I can say it like that. And where this might be critical, and you can see this coming through here and there, is, say, for example, somebody might want to send their daughter to go study, but they might be in an area that they don't know about financial inclusion, they don't know about getting access to credit. And then moving over into this formal credit market where they might need to apply for a study loan, it's quite difficult for them because they don't have a financial footprint. So it's very difficult then for credit grants to make a decision. And this could lead to potentially they might be seeking financial aid from somebody who's not registered, and this might lead for them to paying very, very high interest rates because this company might not be registered. So financial inclusion is for the good of the people. It's for that transparency. So what this also means, that the statistics that I just mentioned, is that about 1.2 million adults in the country are likely to encounter challenges when applying for credit or when moving over to the formal financial, the formal financial economy. So what we also like to do, we actively drive financial inclusion through Namibia through several initiatives. One key approach is promoting microfinance. So we try our best to promote microfinance institutions as well as solutions, and these microfinance are the ones that are registered. They're also registered with all the regulatory bodies. So we work with them as well. TransUnion collaborates with policymakers and regulators, and we do this to enhance infrastructure, create seamless digital experiences for these services. We also have a consumer pulse survey that we do that will show, that offers valuable insights to consumer behaviors and attitudes, and this helps stakeholders understand the challenges as well as the opportunities. So it shows where the gaps might be that credit granters might need to investigate into, or how we can improve services right across Namibia. So by leveraging data and predictive insights, we aim to improve credit access right across, and access not just to credit, but also access to your credit report, just so people are aware of, this is what my rights are, this is what I can do.
So you mentioned microfinancing. Can you just take us through what microfinancing is and just give us a bit of information on that, please?
Sure. So microfinancing is actually very, very popular within Namibia, and this is usually where somebody needs access to funds, or they want to access certain types of credits, but they don't want to go through, say, for example, the traditional banking channels. So microfinance would be a smaller type of business that grants funds with a repayment, and that's usually short-term repayment. So that would typically be your cash loans, and I'm sure that you've seen quite a lot of cash loans right across the country, but they would typically fall within your microfinancing. So that's a cash loan where you take out loans. So it could be a day loan, it could be a week, it could be for a month, or I think 3 to 6 months as well, depending on what type of cash loan it is and what type of loan it is. So typically they would be the microfinances.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure I'm probably exhausting you with questions. This is possibly the last question for this episode. I just want to know what other relevant data do TransUnion provide us at TransUnion of Namibia, basically? And how are these data useful across different sectors?
Right. We actually have quite a lot of uses, not just credit reports, and the assisting companies make informed decisions. It's such a big part of our business, as well as just other information that we help with the different sectors right across. Many people think that a credit bureau only holds negative information, and this is such a tiny part of what a credit bureau is all about, and that's not even what our core business is. So what we do is we provide a wide range of relevant data that's useful across the various sectors that assist businesses as well as governments to make informed decisions, right? So it's about data for good, information for good, and enhance operational efficiency across the various sectors. So if you look at the credit data, which is the ones that we've been discussing, that includes your detailed credit report, scores, which is quite something that's quite becoming quite popular right across. Now, it must be mentioned that a lot of companies use their own internal scores when making decisions. Credit bureaus do have scores, or they have data that they provide these companies to help them make these scores more predictable. So they use this for the credit worthiness as well as to assess risk. Then we've got your public records. So this is information such as bankruptcies, as I mentioned before, defaults, judgments. We've got that information as well. And this data is critical for legal as well as financial assessments. So we're helping businesses and government agencies evaluate financial stability of an individual. This can also be quite a bit in employment screening. So credit bureaus also come in employment screening, especially if you have a very high profile position, or it might be a position that works with finances. You want to know that the individual that you put into that financial position manages their own finances as well. So, and a lot of people don't know this. So it's not just important to keep your credit profile, to have a good credit profile for applying, getting access to credit. It might be the difference between whether or not you're going to get that future position that you're really going after. So it's always good to have a very clean as possible credit report. Then as well, fraud prevention. We use the data from the Bureau quite a bit with regards to fraud prevention. So we offer tools and data to detect and prevent fraud, including identity verification, document verification, and this is vital for sectors such as finance, retail, as well as banking. And lastly, insurers use credit data to assess risk and sometimes also to determine what your premium is. So insurance companies, it helps them to create accurate pricing modules as well as managing claims, because, at the end of the day, they're all businesses. So they need to manage their risk going forward and to also know what type of risk they might have coming forward to manage their businesses properly.
Oh, that was an interesting episode with Ms. Lara Enslin. Thank you so much once again for coming onto our Breakfast with FLI podcast. Your insight into credit reports and credit health and the work that TransUnion Namibia is doing to promote financial inclusion it has been incredibly valuable, and it's clear that understanding and also managing credit reports is not just important, it's as well empowering. And to our listeners, whether you are starting your financial journey or you are someone that's looking to strengthen your credit standing, we hope today's conversation has helped and that you now know the practical steps that you can use to control your financial future. If you would like to learn more or you would like to access your own credit report, please ensure to visit TransUnion website and also contact their customer service team.